There is officially a delay to the Major League Baseball season. I am here, host of Locked On Rangers podcast, your host, Brice Paterik, joined today on a crossover episode, a very sad crossover episode with the great Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. Javi, how you doing? How you holding up?
Uh, I'm doing honestly in all like context and in the case of what we are going through right now, all things considered. There we go. All things considered. That's what I was looking for. Uh, doing pretty all right, man. Honestly, it's because to me it's just not, and I don't imagine this is the same way for you too. But to me, it's just not surprising. So therefore, I had a little bit of optimism, but for the most part, the MLB lockout and missing a few games was pretty expected, no matter how you kind of slice it, at least by my approximation.
Yeah, I was the same way, and then I was an idiot yesterday, and I fell for the oldest trick in the book of the MLB side leaking. Oh, they're close to a deal. Oh, you're gonna get your hopes up. Oh, we're gonna make it happen, and then boom. Oh
Yeah.
no, the player's tenure totally changed. By the way, in case you missed the
Mhm.
news, the first two series of the season have been officially canceled, allegedly by Major League Baseball. Players Association come back and said we have not agreed to cancel those or have a shortened season, so they're going to fight for that. So it's looking like the fight is going to be even more difficult when they come back and try and agree, because they're going to have to agree on how long the season's going to take and other things, and that's going to add even more to this. And I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up in a National Labor Relations Bureau complaint officially being filed and pursuing it in that way, because this is tenuous, and this is one of those clearly both sides are to blame is not true. It's just not true, because the players did not. If you want to file, here's the one fault you can give with the players. The players are asking for quite a bit, which they should, because Major League Baseball is making a whole lot of money, and they did kind of fall asleep at the wheel the last couple of deals, and they're trying to regain some ground that they probably should have gained in the other deals, which they didn't. But I don't blame them at all for asking this. But they're not the ones who instituted the lockout. They're not the ones who refused to meet for the first 40 days, and then refused to give any good faith proposals for the next 3 weeks after that, when they actually started meeting, and then imposed arbitrary deadlines, missed those arbitrary deadlines, and then decided, oh yeah, no, we're gonna cancel opening day. Like, this is a very clear 95% at fault of Major League Baseball, and it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some things on the player side, not to be the both sides guy, and I think there's definitely things to be upset with when it comes to the MLB play. We wish you did a better job the last time the collective bargaining agreement was up, and more importantly, I think a more strong and valid criticism is just overall in general. Maybe not in this particular scenario, they haven't done the best at kind of sticking up for minor leaguers and stuff like that historically. They've kind of left them out. Now, granted, that's a whole ball of yarn to untangle, and you got to look out for major league players as well, and that don't get me wrong, you got the Bryce Harper contracts out there, but for the most part, there's still those veteran minimums and stuff like that they're fighting for. And I think that you're right. The both sides rhetoric is quite fascinating to me in a lot of ways. I think that the biggest way is that like how people have been convinced to root for corporations in general. I think is a large problem that we
To
have
simp
throughout.
for billionaires.
Yeah, yeah. For throughout a lot of cultures, and it's interesting. And Jeff Passan of ESPN, who some might be familiar with due to his incredible work at ESPN and his ability to murder people on Twitter, that he like kind of point out. It's like, and I've been saying this to a lot of people for a while, where I really look at you sideways when you like hate sports, because to me, sports, you cannot be necessarily a fan of them. You don't have to love them, but sports is kind of like the last bastion of, as Jeff Passan pointing, like, it's the only place where the workers are the product. You know what I mean? When you just look at just
Mm-hmm.
entire labor and stuff like that throughout the world, it's like one of the only places where the workers are the product, right? And they make a lot of money. And I think that that's where this kind of animosity comes from. People like, at a certain middle class or lower class level, where they look at this and say, well, what do you have to complain about? And it's true. Don't get me wrong.
See, my
I mean, even 700K a year is pretty great.
I
The
finally
problem
feel
is
like I
that
have
go ahead. You want to interrupt me? Fine. Fine.
a good counter to that. Yes, I do because I think I might have talked about this earlier on the show like a couple days ago, but it might seem silly to think, oh, these guys who are hitting a ball with a stick or throwing a ball really hard get paid $10 million to do that. And yeah, that might be a little bit more money than they should make. That's a little insane. But I would argue that it's more insane for a person whose only skill is having a lot of money beforehand to make all the money that the players who are actually doing the thing are not making. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, well, if these players don't get it, then all the money is going to go to homeless shelters and teachers and firemen and all that good stuff. Like, no, it's going to go to some rich billionaire.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of like the big problem we have right now, right? Where it's just like, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say this on the podcast. So my thoughts about the whole, like the fans losing the most and what have you, and that this is really a bummer in a lot of ways. And it is for fans, definitely a loss, but it's just kind of, you have to understand percentages and how much a billion is compared to a million. You have to understand that just because Walker Buehler has a 2-year, $8 million contract, that does not mean that like he's just guaranteed for life. That's a great amount of money. I'm sure he'll be okay as long as he,
but
doesn't
speak for
do anything
yourself,
crazy.
if someone pays me $8 million, I don't have to do a dang thing the rest of my life.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's good. It's a good living, but I think that it's also possible. I know that there was a lot of fuss about the AP headline this week, or last week, or over the weekend, or whatever.
The AP has
about.
had some pretty big goofs the last couple of weeks of
Yeah.
their phrasing of things, and also selling an NFT of refugees on a life raft. In like the same 2-day span, which not a great look for the AP.
Yeah, and there's a lot of blame to go around in terms of how this messaging has gone across, where there are people who look at this and say millionaires versus billionaires, which is the very popular, punchy kind of tagline that people like to put on this. But I think that that's just a giant oversimplification of things, because you're watching the players. They are the product. I don't think you should really care that Steve Cohen can't afford his 8th limousine ride in the last 24 hours. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not really, that's not an issue for you, the fan. That should not be a thing for you. Instead, you should be saying, well, in actuality, if the owners literally accepted the very original proposal, probably, and our buddy Lindsey Crosby over at Locked On MLB Prospects, great podcast, made this point where it's like they'd still probably be winning even if they took that original deal. So it's kind of this situation where I hate when people say they're like it's the players' fault, because that's technically true. The players, if they had just gone up there and said, fine deal, then we're done. That is technically true, but that's why it's an oversimplification, right? That's why you fight for things.
But if the owners didn't put out those deadlines and fluff around, then it wouldn't have.
To me, it's not even that, right? To me, it's just like the in general thing of we have a lockout because players are disagreeing. But then it's like, if you're going to say, then you have to be like, look, maybe the people who have infinitely more money and resources are the people also to blame. And I think that that's really where kind of the kind of general thought is right now. And I'm overgeneralizing. I don't think everybody feels this way. I think that a lot of people are catching on to how the world unfortunately works right now. But it's unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate. There's a reason why the show Succession is popular. So
there most definitely is a few reasons why that's popular, and you can bet we're going to be pissed if we're going to miss some games. But, if you want to go bet on sports games, there's only one place to go. It's betonline.net. Football might be over, but, basketball's in full steam in both pro and college hoops as well. From the latest odds, totals, player performance, props, right to where the next fired coach is going to land. Betonline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. They've also got all kinds of great stuff. It's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds as well. So head to the website on your mobile device or your computer. Sign up today. Learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, I did put out a very late call for questions, I think like an hour ago. We did get a few questions that were pretty good. I want to start from the main one from my boy Sam Mills, longtime friend of the me, and I guess thereby Association.
The me,
pod.
the friend, the longtime friend of
I was
the
going to
me.
say of the pod, and then I was like, of the me. So, but he said, do you need a hug? And my answer is yes, Javi. It seems like yours is no.
No, I'm doing all right, man. Look, it's very unfortunate. You know what I mean? This is something that both of us have a vested interest in continuing. We are literally hosting this podcast. I do some baseball writing as well, as some people might be familiar with. Go check it out. Just Baseball, great website. But like, part of me is also like, I mean, at least I have some spare time to do work on some other things and what have you. And I have some more, I can read my books and whatnot. But that is also a good point to tie into it, where it's like, that's why the lockout is even more damning right now and more concerning about the future of the league, because this ain't 1994. You know what I mean? At least back then, people were kind of trapped and, hanging out at home and watching baseball and whatnot. But now it's like, hey, how about we just go watch Moon Knight? You know what I mean? Like, how many kids and how many people are just going to say, let's go watch the new Moon Knight series. Let's go, I don't know, play a video game where you have access to all these incredible properties. Like, I just think that the times have changed, that there's a lot of different things competing for our eyeballs. And, viewership attendance across literally every program on live TV is down, with the exception of the Super Bowl. Like, everything's going down. So it kind of makes you wonder, like, can baseball come back from this? I think they can, maybe, but this is a really long-winded way of me answering whether or not I need a hug. But the answer is, I think I need a hug because everyone needs a hug. But I think I'm doing, better than most with the lockout.
Sam gives some solid hugs, but no, this has definitely sent me spiraling the last couple days into career existential dread. And why did I try and pursue a sports media career, especially centering all around baseball? Like, that was a really dumb decision in hindsight, but I'm here and I'm sticking with it, and I'm just gonna let myself spiral for another day or so and try and be less chronically online as I have been the last couple of days, and maybe that'll make things better. But it's fine. Anyway, from Hops and Hoops, is there a scenario where MLBPA actually holds out all season? How would you feel about it if it ultimately helped the players get a more fair deal? Well, they'd have to absolutely gouge Major League Baseball if they held out all season, or if they did not get a deal all season. Like, they'd have to absolutely gouge them for me to be like, all right, yep, that's worth it. That's absolutely worth it. Like, I don't know, like freaking $1 million, like double the minimum salary, actually get some progress on the CBT, still have that, like, maybe a 10 or 12 game playoff. Like, there'd have to be some huge leaps and bounds, because while I still think this deal was a slap in the face, I do think it might be the best Major League Baseball is going to offer until there's some significant portion of the season miss, which I hate to say, and I don't like that that's the deal, but I think that's just kind of what it is. But my sentiment might start to turn more on the players if, depending on where Major League Baseball doesn't move for like 2 months, which is entirely possible, then, man, I'm not going to blame the players at all for holding steady on what they're asking, because Major League Baseball is refusing to meet them anywhere close on so many big areas where they've actually caved quite a bit on some of the other bigger areas.
Yeah, like that whole pool of money thing. Remember the famous the $115 million proposal in the league counted with 10, right? Like, there's just areas like that where it's, I think that in general, I would love to answer the question, like, if they did hold out for the whole season, that would really stink for me and a lot others. But just as a fundamental belief in rooting for the players, the worker in this case, I'd be happy for them. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways. Don't get me wrong, they're doing better than a lot of other industries. Go Google, Amazon, Alabama, if you want to have just an idea of how other worker stripes go. Look up GMG union, stuff like that. Like, there are a lot of other ones out there that are struggling, but just as a fundamental, always rooting for the worker over the
and this is like, this time in our lives is like a big, like, there is a big swing back towards like workers' rights and unions and the power of unions that hasn't been there in a long time. Like, the entire media industry is unionizing. I was part of the paper that was the first unionized paper in the state of Texas, and then within like 6 months there were like 4 more, which is great. Love that. And other unions as well, and other like big companies that are finally, I mean, it's a hard fight, but it's a movement nationwide, and it's not just about baseball. It's about all kinds of industries that are going there. So, yeah.
And not to make this the union chat, they can be a little bit complicated. Don't get me wrong, and it doesn't necessarily prevent everything from happening. But you know, the worst case scenario is go look up what is it, episode 2 of Succession. That's the worst case scenario when you don't have unions. You know what I'm saying? So like it can get a little hairy sometimes if you know what I'm talking about. So definitely yeah, I think that in general you have to root for that. But I do understand, like, us is different than, say, vending machine workers, people who are like a little bit like it's their full-time job and stuff like that. I can understand a little bit more that this is more pressing for a lot of people. Those are the people I feel the most for when it comes to the MLB lockout, for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. Anyway, this next question is from Sean Daniel. Is a really interesting one. Once a deal is finally reached, how long might it take for regular season games to begin? I'm intrigued of how free agency will work following the deal. Well, this is a two-part. I'll let you take on how long you think it might take for regular season games. But for free agency, I really think this is going to be exactly like NBA free agency, where all the deals are, agreed to beforehand, and everyone just tweets them out like the second the embargo is lifted. And I really think that there's already a bunch of deals in place that we just don't know about yet that are going to be announced really quickly once this lockout is ended, if it's ever ended. But I really think it's going to be like that. It's just going to be a frenzy, just boom, just like it was at the end of November.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just like at the end of it in November. And especially because there's still a lot of good free agents left. I know that we still have like Anthony Rizzo and he's like a bottom tier, or not bottom tier, but like a mid-tier free agent.
Yeah.
And then you still have Correa, you still have Trevor Story, you still have Carlos Rodon, you still have Clayton Kershaw, and I know he's
Freddie
been rumored to be on your team. So Freddie Freeman, like there's still a lot, and it could get really, really rad. So baseball fans, if there's one silver lining, just look forward to that day. You know what I mean? That day is going to be awesome. Like,
dude, you literally
might get deals. You literally might get deals like within a day after that happening, and then they all come in, and then it's like,
I think
all right,
it's literally going to be minutes. Like not day,
so?
Not a day. I think it's going to be like minutes.
I mean, it could be, right? That'll be a lot of fun for sure. And in terms of the question of the time length, you have to just kind of look back at, I guess, when in the 2020 pandemic year, like how long it took people to get into the swing of things with the spring training. I don't know the exact numbers on how many games they would be doing there. I do think it does depend on how many games we miss.
I think 3-4 weeks. I think 3-4 weeks from when they agree to a deal to when they're ready, because that was about the timeline that we were looking at from the MLB imposed February 28th to opening day. Like it was about 4 weeks.
As of right now, we're losing the first 2 series, right? And basically, if that timeline matches up, 3 to 4 weeks, basically, of spring training would have been if they had come to a deal. Then that's
so
what
basically we have 6 days from now until they cancel more games, if we're looking at this timeline and then them keeping consistent with it. So, I think about 3-4 weeks is what makes sense. And the last question is from Ronald with a cowboy hat emoji. Who has got the better flow, Tatis or the GOAT Josh Smith? It's Tatis. I love Josh Smith's flow. Josh Smith is a Rangers prospect who was in the Joey Gallo deal acquired from the Yankees. But Tatis' flow is elite, just like pretty much everything that he does.
Yeah, I mean, I may or may not have not known who Josh Smith was. I am the Padres guy after all. The first Josh Smith I thought of was the former Hawks / Rockets legend who would shoot threes for no reason. And he couldn't make them. I mean, in fairness to Josh Smith, I mean, he was trying to expand his game. I think
the Rangers actually
knew where the direction of the NBA was going, and maybe that's why I started shooting threes, even though they couldn't make them. So I do applaud the man for that. But yeah, I mean, Tatis's flow is remarkable. The real question would be between like John Morant and Fernando Tatis Jr. Just do a little cross sports reference for you, right? That's a good one. Oh, I got you thinking.
That's tough. Right? I like.
That's tough.
I'm still going with Tatis.
I think John Morant is the Fernando Tatis Jr. of the NBA. I really do. I think that on a lot of levels, they're very similar. Both just the dance afterwards, the hairstyle, the style of play, how exciting they are. They do different things on the court than I think we haven't seen before in a lot of ways. In the case with Tatis and all that stuff, and helping a team that historically hasn't been as relevant in the case of both the Padres and the Grizzlies. But anyway, thanks for the question, sir.
These are some great questions from from all y'all, and we're gonna get into a former Ranger that signed with the Padres and what the Padres fans should expect and why I actually kind of wanted him on the Rangers. But first, I want to talk to you guys about Built Bar.
Yeah, man, I want to talk to you guys about Built Bars, specifically me. Well, the player we're going to be talking about, a little bit of a mixed bag. I think we could say, Brice. Some of them that we're going to talk about, a little bit of a mixed bag. But you know what isn't a mixed bag, goddammit? It is Built Bars. They are the best, bar none, best protein bars in the world. In the world, in the universe, in the galaxy, no matter where you go, guys. And you know
I will counter you and say you can get a mixed bag to try all these different flavors, and you might want to, but it's not going to be a mixed bag. It can be technically it is. It will be literally in name, but all the bars, they're going to be fantastic.
They are, man. And what I love about them is, aside from just being, soft and easy to chew, covered in 100% chocolate, look at the macros, man. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein, compared to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Brice and I can both vouch for the taste, man. We both had plenty of these things. And by plenty, also plenty of flavors. They have white chocolate cookies and cream, chocolate almonds, coconut almonds, mint brownie, apple almond crisp, cherry barcia, cherry, whatever the heck they got. They have an eggnog flavor, for crying out loud. They have everything that you could want, and they're yummy, man. So just because you're listening to this podcast, go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Remember, promo code LOCKED15, 15% off. Built.com. And also, I have one more thing, Brice.
You do? You do?
I do have one more thing. Just one more thing. Do you need help with your cars? Well, I got the best stop for you. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto, ladies and gentlemen. Look, I don't know anything about cars. In fact, I'm more of a helicopter, a flying vehicle person myself. But
wow.
If I were a car person, Rock Auto is what has you covered, man. Forget all the intimidating questions when you go to a chain store. $353 for a Honda Odyssey fuel pump. Guess what? Rock Auto has you covered for $216. It's great. You're saving money up to 100% more on all of your parts, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. They got you covered, and their website is very easy to navigate, which is important because, as we've been talking about earlier in this episode, people can be a little bit confused sometimes. You know what I mean? It's hard to navigate stuff. It's why Apple has succeeded in a lot of ways, which is the computer I'm using to record this episode, because it's just so easy. The interface, very easy on Rock Auto as well. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there. How'd you hear about us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
Wow, that was some great stuff there. Absolutely fantastic.
That was fun,
stuff.
Man. That was fun, man.
Now we're gonna go from that to the great, the one, the only Nick Martinez has signed a deal with the San Diego Padres, and this is a guy who was very early on in my Rangers watching, played a big part. He came up in 2014, the year from heck of the Rangers, a guy who was just about fine. That's about what he was as a major league pitcher. He was who I would describe as a quad A kind of guy, halfway between AAA, halfway between the big leagues. Wasn't quite good enough to stick in the rotation long term, but was just okay. And the Rangers, he did what the Rangers needed him to do, which was just be okay. He had a 4.77 ERA in 415 major league innings across 4 seasons with the Rangers. Spent the last couple of years in the Nippon Professional Baseball League in Japan, came back and was really solid in Japan, a 3.02 ERA in 378 innings across 3 seasons there. So he was a guy who I thought the Rangers might look at because they liked him when he was here. He was pretty fine when he was here. But again, those were some actually competitive Rangers teams that he was on, so he wasn't really cracking the rotation. The Rangers had a pretty deep rotation at the time, but he just couldn't quite stick, as he was either a long reliever or the last man in the starting rotation or going back down to AAA. And, I think this is exactly the type of signing that the Padres need. Knowing what the Padres issues were last year of, we have all these great arms, but all of their arms are falling off, and we just need some guy who can come in there and be solid, because we're signing Vince freaking Velasquez and Jake Arrieta, like that would solve anything. But I don't blame them for trying because they had to try something because everybody was hurt. But I think this is exactly the type of guy that the Padres need. The Rangers need some depth of pitching because I don't trust what they've got in the last two spots of their rotation right now. But I mean, y'all went and got him, and much respect for doing that because I think he can really help the Padres next year.
Hey, look, I mean, Nick Martinez, 4 years, $20 million from the Padres was one of the deals that they made before
It was
the
4
lockout
years,
came
$20
on.
million? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a
So it
great
was a little
deal.
bit it was a little bit surprising in a lot of ways. Maybe, I mean, it's $5 million per year. It's kind of whatever, right? But I think it's very.
The 4
I
years
guess
part
they're just kind of
surprised me. If he's gonna get
the
$5
4 years
million a
surprised
year,
me. Yeah.
but like that's still a pretty good price for a guy who pitched very well in Japan and was solid, average-ish very back end of the rotation guy. So like,
Right.
I don't know. I think there's definitely some value there. I'm not exactly sure what kind of innings he's going to be able to give them. I think like I said, he pitched 430 innings over. Hold on, no, 378 innings over 3 years. So a little bit over 125 innings per year. So I think if the Padres could get that out of him, I think they'd be pretty pleased with the $5 million and like a decent-ish ERA. Like I think he can give them that.
Yeah, I think that it's just kind of a reinforcement thing where they're saying, and hey, maybe they even want to use him as a reliever at some point. I think they're just kind of looking at some of the other arms. They want to make sure that they don't have that Vince Velasquez, Jake Arrieta thing again because you lose AJ Monahan at the beginning of the year, then into the season. Let's just talk about people not performing all that well. You know what I mean? Blake Snell was a mess for most of the season until the end, and at the end, he gets hurt. You have Dinelson Lamet, who is just like you said, but their arms were just falling off. Brice Paterik gets hurt. All these guys are getting hurt to the point where we're like, oh my God, like we don't even have anybody left. So having Nick Martinez, who maybe presents some upside, maybe he learned a few things over in the Nippon League, and that's one of the reasons they were interested in him. 4 years, 20, it's not that bad. Is the AAV a little bit like, all right, whatever? But at the same time, I think Padres fans shouldn't be expecting the team to be able to go out and get everybody. They've become a little bit spoiled. I know that sounds weird, but I think Padres fans have actually become a little spoiled in the sense that they just keep thinking that AJ Preller can, like in perpetuity, just keep doing these giant blockbusters. I get questions all the time that are like, well, Vince Velasquez is on the market or Chris Bassett and Sean Manaea. And it's like, well, first of all, Luis Castillo. I'm sorry. That was a huge brain fart. My God. Luis Castillo of the Reds, it's like
basically the same player. Basically the same.
Basically the same player, right? Like everybody's asking for him. I remember actually, and I talked about the Nick Martinez signing, and my thing was, he did not succeed here before. Time has changed, but I don't know what's going to happen necessarily. He was a very unremarkable pitcher in a lot of ways for the Texas Rangers. So maybe he learned some things. And I remember getting a comment from someone whose last name was Martinez, which scared me. And I was like, did I like insult his brother or a dad or a family member or something like that?
I always worry about that.
I also at the end of it said that I am only going based on my take on what his MLB tenure was. And if we are going at the MLB tenure, very unremarkable. So my thing was like, was there not another kind of low end pitcher you could have got out there for a little bit less? Who knows? I might be wrong because in fairness, one thing AJ Preller has been very good at is kind of those low key trades and signings. I cannot mention, of course, the name of the person who plays first base for the Padres. Is a longtime rule for my podcast. But the Padres first baseman, that contract isn't good. Maybe you could argue that the Darvish and Snell things have been good, but those little things, nobody really knew.
You cannot argue the Darvish hasn't been good. Not in front of me. You can do it behind my back, but not to my face.
For the Padres, man. For the Padres. I'm not talking about. He's a legend. He's a legend.
Anyway, but no, he also. I'm also pretty sure that actually. When did he leave? Martinez was drafted in the 18th round of 2011. So no, AJ Preller was still there when they drafted him. He might have gotten a few looks at him when the Rangers scouted him. 18th round pick out of Fordham University. So already a 4-year career in the big leagues is pretty remarkable for a guy from Fordham, not necessarily known as a baseball powerhouse, picked in the 18th round in 2011. So I don't like unremarkable feels a bit harsh. Like nothing flat. I mean, it's not wrong, but it's
Yeah.
he didn't do anything flashy. He's solid back
Hey,
end of the like pitching rotation slash
you know,
like major league
Padres
roster. But like again,
rotation. Or go ahead. Go ahead.
Padres
Sorry, I'm interrupting
Padres
you.
could have used like 5 Nick Martinez's last year, and maybe they wouldn't have
Yeah,
fallen off a
it's
cliff.
hey. They could have used Eric Lauer last year, who they gave up in the trade for Trent Grisham, who hopefully is going to have a bounce back year. But yeah,
Mm.
it's one of those things. It's just in terms of what I can view right now, not the most thrilling signing. But in fairness, as I mentioned with the Padres fans getting a little spoiled, I don't think that they should expect giant altering moves unless they remove somehow the aforementioned first baseman. If they get rid of him, then I think they're basically in on all of those kind of top level free agents, or at least
Mm.
will inquire more. But for now, it's kind of just like, no. And I also don't want to torpedo what's left of the farm system either. While the farm system, I think, has been a little bit exaggerated how much they lost and that it's just awful now, I still think that there's some very good
It's not
talent in
awful,
there.
but there it was
It
so
was the best of all time at one
it
point.
was
Yeah.
so phenomenal. It was so phenomenal beforehand. It did lose quite a bit of depth. But I will caution Padres fans this. Sometimes the pitchers that you're the least excited about as signing free agents and these like minor deals, like that's exactly how I felt with Kyle Gibson. I was like, really? This guy? I felt the same way about Lance Lynn. I was like, really? This guy? Both of them turned out to be absolute home runs, which, not everybody can do what the Rangers can do and take these guys off the scrap heap and turn them into amazing players. But we've seen a lot of success from pitchers going over, and other position players as well, going over to Asia, figuring some things out, coming back, and being strong. So I would hold some optimism out there for Padres fans. And even if he is exactly what he was with the Rangers in the major leagues, that player still has some value. Maybe not 5 million a
We'll
year,
see.
but there's still
We'll see.
some stuff to be excited about.
Hey,
But
I'll tell you one thing though. Let's pretend that there was a big free agent on the market, and then if the Padres went for him, that would handicap your ability to be more flexible in the future because they, in fairness to the Padres, they are spending a good amount of money. This Padres team. This is not Cleveland. This is not Miami Marlins, right? So I like the idea of saying, let's do some low ball ones because lately our big high swings haven't been doing all that much for us. So I'm interested. It's going to be one of those things where I'm looking forward to spring training. But Padres fans, the biggest thing with this signing, I would definitely say, is there are other ways to redeem this rotation, especially when, would it shock you if your boy comes back, Brice, former Rangers great, and has a complete good season. He was good in the first half, but not the second half. A complete good season. Blake Snell figures it out. We got Mike Clevenger coming back next year. Hopefully we'll see how many innings he can throw there. You got Joe Musgrove, maybe Chris Paddock gets a little bit of that mojo back from his rookie year. You know what I'm I don't know why I'm bouncing. Maybe he gets that back, right? So you don't necessarily have to make that giant move. So I'm looking forward to it. And I've kind of warmed up to it a little bit more. And we'll see what happens because maybe by the time the season starts, I'm like, literally, AJ Preller, what were you thinking? I just saw this guy give up 3 home runs an inning. But for now, we'll see.
for now, solid pick. There's always some value in having depth, no matter how good your rotation is, no matter what position, how good whatever position is, especially starting pitching. You can always use some depth there. But Javi, thank you so much for taking the time, making sure that I didn't have to talk about this opening day being canceled all by myself. It was just too depressing a thought to do by myself, but I'm glad that I can have you here to help ease the pain by seeing a friend and talking about this. Where can the fine folks listening to Locked On Rangers find you and your work, Mr. Javier Reyes?
Hold on. I have my finger up.
Oh,
Damn you. I had one
sorry,
more
I'm
thing.
closing this out. I'm doing an expert job and you're ruining it.
One thing, man. That's why I said one thing.
All right, give me your one thing and then
Jurickson
tell folks where they
Profar.
can find you. Profar. What
Does
about
he
him?
have the best smile in all of baseball?
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say so. It's hard for me to go against my boy Joey Gallo like that, but Jurickson Profar's smile could light up the entire Eastern Seaboard or the Western Seaboard or
Light
both.
up the world like nobody. Yeah. People can find me though over at Javapeno, JAVIIPENO, on Twitter. I tweet about a whole bunch of weird stuff.
It's
But
true.
if you want very, very, very exclusively Padres content, at LO_Padres. And then if you want to see me doing the very weird things that I was doing on today's show, I don't know what got into me. You can check out the YouTube Locked On Padres on YouTube, and feel free to subscribe and stuff. Because I mean, look, we're going to be providing the people content, man. It's what we do. Even during a
That's
lockout,
true.
we got this covered, man.
We're here 3 days a week and 5 days once the lockout is ended. For Locked On Padres listeners, you can find me on Twitter at Brice Paterik. You can find the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube or wherever the heck you get your podcast if you want to hear about some, I don't know, a less sad baseball team. It's much more encouraging as of late. And hear about how the Dodgers' beloved jewel of Corey Seager is doing well and thriving away from the Dodgers. And get petty like that, then I respect it and I welcome you to my show. But thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.